Would you like to know about Athenian democracy? How did it work? Why was it founded in ancient Athens and not, I don't know, ancient Sparta or in Persia or somewhere else? What is the difference between democracy and the Republican form of government? What is the difference between these two systems? All of that and more you can find in a book that I'm going to be suggesting for you today. Let's find out. Hello everybody, my name is Stavros. I'm a professor of international relations and an advocate for democracy. Democracy is something different than many of you might think. Democracy is a form of government founded in ancient Athens, around circa 6th, 5th, and 4th century BC. It was a process. It was an evolving process. It was not set in stone. Many and different people supported this movement as it was initiated, and then it developed in a political system. So it is interesting to note that democracy is extremely different than what we call a republic today. Mostly in the West, we are being governed from these republican forms of government, a republic, which is actually something that is opposite to democracy on the political field. And according to political science, there's essential difference between the two forms of government. So I have a book proposal, suggestion, recommendation for you, if you will, but obviously it's my book, so you're going to be the ultimate judge if you would like to find out more about it. So this is the book. This came out and it's called Gods of Democracy: When Citizens Ruled, an Overview of the Athenian Democracy. So this is a book. It's a 300 book, but it's a short book, so it's great for trips. You can put it in your backpack and you can read it, I guess, fairly quickly, I would say. So this book has actually, well, let me read from the back cover a little bit here so you'll know what it's all about. So it says, from the capital of modern Greece and the steps of the US Capitol, and from the Islamic Republic of Iran to the People's Republic of China, politicians of all stripes invoke the democratic ideal. But what does democracy truly mean? What forces converged to bring into life in ancient Athens? How did it operate and who were its founders? What are democracy's modern applications and what does its future hold? From the ages of the gods and titans to the present day, this book explores these questions and reveals how humanity ended up calling democracy a system that in essence is a version of the oligarchy of ancient Rome, the so-called Roman Republic. In reality, democracy flourished in dozens of ancient city-states beyond Athens, bringing power, prosperity, and culture. Driven by Athens' maritime dominance, mainly, and the democratic ideals later championed by individuals such as Alexander the Great, from the Trojan War through the Ottoman occupation, the Greeks have been timeless defenders of democracy, a system of governance that now more than ever must be reborn. So this is, in essence, a history of democracy. You'll find it really, really interesting if you would like to know more about it. So let me quickly go through the chapters here so you'll know what you're getting yourselves into. So there's 10 chapters here, right? And we have an excellent graphic designer, an illustrator who painted some plates for each of these chapters here. So this is the first chapter, as you can see here. The painter and illustrator is called Eskimo Design. You can find them on him on Instagram. So this is the first plate right here. So you can see it. This is the cover. This is the plate. All right. Okay, so let me tell you about the first chapter here, which is titled From Myth to Polis. So polis is the ancient city-state, but it's deeper than that. The ancient city-state was the city and the governmental functions of it. The polis were the people of the city, the people consisting the people. So from myth, we begin our discovery of democracy from the very, very early beginnings of mythology, when Athens got its namesake from Athena, the ancient goddess, and how the Athenians, in essence, adopted the political lessons and political mandates of the gods for equality, for citizens' political participation, for all citizens in public life. So the links between, Prometheus, who was a revolutionary himself, he stole fire, which was ingenuity, which was not only a tool for humanity, but it was also, a tool for creativity, to provide for humanity. So we examined the mythological aspects of democracy in this first chapter. I think really, really interesting. And we then proceed with the second chapter called the Athens factor, which is basically what we discussed before. Why was this political form of government founded in ancient Athens, not in, Thebes or Sparta or Macedon or other countries, not non-Greek ones like Egypt or Persia or wherever? Why was it founded here? And this is the plate that we have for this chapter. As you can see here, this is a philosopher carrying a mini replica of the ship, and then we have the theater masks right underneath. So this chapter is basically explaining the reasons why democracy was born here. Let me read to you aloud the 5 sub-chapters, and you'll get a good idea of why this happened in this part of the world, specifically in this city that I'm recording this video in, Athens. So the first chapter is the Age of Heroes. So we begin from the Trojan era, really, really important. The second sub-chapter is the audacity of philosophy, because philosophy was a necessary ingredient, since this was the force that led people raising questions such as, who rules? Are the rulers just or unjust? Should they rule? Somebody else should rule. Should there one person ruling? Should there be few people ruling, an oligarchy, or should the people rule, democracy? Raising these political questions led to democracy. So political philosophy is directly linked to this ancient form of government. The third subchapter, the race to the top. This has to do with athletics, the Olympics, the idea of competition, competing in a healthy environment to become the best version of you. So competition in the arena, but also competition in the political arena, being political opponents. The ancient Athenians vied for power and success and glory. Subchapter number 4, odes to the god of Pan, meaning songs to the god Pan. The god Pan was he was a bucolic god of shepherds and farmers, and it was also a god of fertility and festivals. And ancient Greeks worshipping him, they were the ones who created this proto-theatrical state. The festivals and festivities celebrating the god Pan were the festivities that led to the actual founding of theater. And theater by itself was a force of democracy, since in ancient Athenian theater, we had political discussions, we had debates in the plays themselves. And the major poets, like Stelios, Euripides, Sophocles, and Aristophanes, in satire, in comedy, the poets were the most democratic of the ancient Athenian influencers of the time, because they were raising modern problems, modern dilemmas. And by raising these questions, the people, the audience, were also being called to participate in what should happen. And this deliberative process, this dialogue and explaining and expressing ideas, and only after expressing ideas there should be a decision. This was also a necessary element that instilled to the ancient Athenians the idea of, being participants in a major discussion, in a dilemma, and after deliberation and debate, only then they can come up on a decision. And then finally, the final subchapter, the second chapter, is Tamers of the Waters, the navy of the Athenians was a major force that led to the founding of democracy, because of many people having to serve as rowers and members of the triremes, the powerful ships at the time. By becoming members of the navy, because members of the regular army, they had to be rich, because they had to buy their own armor, shield, maybe even horses. But by serving in the navy, you didn't have to be rich to do that. So this was also something that created this revolution. So let's proceed with the third chapter right here, which is called The Dark Myths of Ancient Athens. This is, you can see here, we have Socrates. He's drinking something, conium, the poison that he was forced to drink, and he was killed. So this is one of the major myths that people have to say against democracy, that democracy killed Socrates. Well, actually, no, and you'll find all about it. That it's definitely a myth. Democracy didn't kill Socrates, right? Other things happened, but I cannot expand on this video. Also, some other myths that are being debunked is the Athenian woman supposed to be imprisoned in the household. This was not the case. Only rich women had the luxury to do that, and rich women were not democratic. Rich women were for the oligarchy, the aristocracy. So the enemies of the democracy were rich and could have their women the luxury to stay at home. The same counts for slaves. So and they were not slaves; they were bond servants. And guess what? Ordinary people, the unit of the economic unit of democracy were the people working the fields, the farmers, the farmhands. They didn't have the ability to own anybody. The only people who had these abilities, again, were the rich, and the rich were oligarchs. So the enemies of democracy had the ability to keep these servants, not the people. So democracy had nothing to do. Not only that, if you think about it, there were slaves in many parts of the world at that time. Sparta, Persia, Rome. None of these city-states or countries developed into democracy. So having slaves doesn't mean that you get a democracy. Something else obviously led to democracy. Then sycophants and demagogues, also a myth to be debunked. And then the Greek city-states beyond Athens that were democratic. It wasn't just Athens that were democratic. And trust me, Athens was not democratic all the time. Obviously, the Athenians had a king first, beginning from Theseus to the tyrant Pisistratus, and then there was democracy, and then there was oligarchy, then there was democracy again, and oligarchy again. So, every city-state, most of the city-states, dozens, more than 50, 60 city-states that I counted, went through the democratic process, and there are many interesting elements of how democracy worked in other parts of the Greek world. The Greek world, other city-states, Hellenic city-states of the Greek world, from across not only continental Greece, but in other parts of the Black Sea, etc. Then we go to chapter number 4, which is called Forgers of Democracy. And this is the chapter dedicated to the founders of democracy. As you can see, this is the plate by Eskimo Design again. All right, so again, the analysis is not that great. Excuse me for that. You can find the link for my book. I will just post it underneath on the description here. You can buy it for yourself wherever you are in the world. We can send it to you. We can ship it to you. So this chapter essentially talks about the founding fathers of democracy, right? So we have 5 people here: Solon, one of the sages of ancient Greece. Then we have Clisthenes, who was a key player for democracy as well. Themistocles, who was instrumental in founding the powerful navy of the Athenians, and we discussed how important the navy was for democracy, for its development. Then we have Ephialtes, which is different than the one from the Hot Gates, the Thermopylae. This guy has nothing to do with that part of the war against the Persians. That was a different Ephialtes who betrayed King Leonidas of Sparta. So Ephialtes was a democratic reformer, Democrat in ancient Athens. And then finally, we talk about Pericles, at the height of Athens in the golden age of Athens. Then we move on to the 5th chapter here, which is called Pillars of Democracy. This is where things get really, really interesting. This is the plate right here. This is a person, specifically according to the illustrator Pericles, who speaks in the podium in the Citizens' Assembly. And this chapter talks about, well, the institutions of ancient Athens, the institutions of the Athenian democracy, and you'll get to know everything about it. In this chapter and the next, you'll understand how the ancient Athenian system worked, and you can make your own, draw comparisons, and maybe try and figure out if the system that you have in your country has anything to do with this system that the Athenians had. So we talk about the major institutions, like the Citizens' Assembly, which was called the Agora, the Parliament, which was called the Vuli, the governor of the country, which was a governor for only one day. So they changed their governors, but their ability to govern was limited. And we had the courts, the citizens' courts, the people's courts, all of that. You'll know about it and understand how they worked in this chapter right here, which ties in with the next chapter, which is called the arsenal of democracy. Arsenal because these were the weapons that the people had. This is ostracism. You may have heard about it. People would write the name of a person that they would like to see exiled from Athens because they were considered to be a threat to democracy. And if 6,000 people voted for someone, big number, mind you, so it was not easy. Many people might say that, people were easily evicted and exiled. No, this was truly a big thing, and you had to find 6,000 people from 30,000 people who voted to vote for someone to be exiled. So it was pretty big, pretty difficult, and they had to leave the country to protect democracy. So many tools here. So this is one tool. We had other tools like vetting of candidates, political accountability as well was also a tool that ancient Athenians used to protect their form of government. There was public indictment, public persecution. So the people could indict and persecute politicians, not only impeach them, but throw them in, actually not jail because they didn't have jails. They would be able to enforce any kind of penance, I guess they'll have to pay a fine if they did something that was not to the benefit of the city. They may also would be exiled as well, or they may lose their political rights. All of that was something that the people could do. Then, getting to the more historic elements, after we discussed like the system of ancient Athens, we get to the historic parts and what happened. When was the last moment of democracy? The last breath of democracy, chapter number 7. This is when Rome burns Athens to the ground. Right, this is the Roman legions of the general Sylla, who burned Athens. I don't know why I cannot fix it. Okay, this is better. All right. So this is, if you ask me, when was the last moment of democracy? Not only in ancient Athens, but in the Greek world, and I would say, roughly speaking, generally, the last moment of democracy, actually, it was then. It was during this struggle, this war with the Roman legions. So this was in the 88 BCE that the Romans decimated Athens and they dismantled democracy for good. Then, chapter 8, we have the rise of the Republic. This is very, very interesting. This is where we will debunk the urban myth of why we came with this form of government that everybody calls a democracy, although it's a republic. And what's the difference behind these two? So this is the Declaration of Independence during the United States War of Independence against the British. So there was these papers at the time named the Federalist Papers, where the founding fathers of the American Constitution, they were debating. And they had a dilemma. Which form of government should we adopt? The democratic one from ancient Athens or the republican one from the Roman Republic? And there's truly a debate, and it's cited in the book. And you can see how people like Alexander Hamilton or James Madison, they agreed on adopting the republic, the Roman system, not a democracy, not the Athenian democracy. So the representation, an oligarchy, not people directly being involved in citizens' affairs, but indirectly once in a while giving a blank check to people voting, because guess what? The founding fathers of the United States, they were brilliant people, but they were part of an elite. An elite is an oligarchy, so that only made sense for them to adopt, because they were supporters of ancient Greek art and philosophy, but they supported more the Roman political system and the laws of Rome. So they tended to agree, and they adopted the Republic, which was a Roman system, which was interestingly was based on ancient Sparta, and you'll find more about it in the book. Then the penultimate chapter, which is this one. This is the dark myths concerning democracy today. It has to do with corruption. And we will be debunking in this chapter issues like democracy means elections. No, it doesn't. Elections need to be democratic. Otherwise, it's not democratic. The tyranny of the majority is also a dark myth. Democracy means representation. No, it doesn't. The difference between democracy and republic, what it is exactly, specifically. Democracy means party system. No, it doesn't. And the immorality of politics, the necessity in a globalized world for a politician to be corrupt because they simply have to, which is also not democracy, not democratic at all. So interestingly, we have chapter at the beginning, the third chapter, the dark myths of ancient Athens, which is the ancient myths that we're debunking, and then chapter 9, dark myths of contemporary democracy. So debunking what we think is democratic today. Finally, the ultimate chapter has to do, and the more hopeful, has to do with the modern actual democratic processes and practices around the world. This chapter is titled From Ashes, the Demos. The Demos is the organized people, the organized assembly, the people as an institution, not as voters. So from ashes, there comes the Demos, and this is a picture from Switzerland. The cantons, the citizen assemblies, and the town meetings that people are doing, voting directly by themselves and deciding for who will be representing them, but also about the budget, about many things in their cities and cantons. Really, really interesting. They have referendums, obviously, and you will find other democratic practices across the world today that you may want to learn more about, and they're being explained in this chapter, like the participatory budgeting, liquid democracy, even some stuff that include the technology that I think that you may find really, really interesting. So this is the book. This is a quick presentation of what this book is all about. Let me know down in your comments, in comments, what do you think about it? Let me see your comments. I would be really, really glad to see your reactions to this video. And if you do like to go through this, buy this book, you can find a link directly to our publisher, and you can order it from there, and you can ship it all across the world. This is it. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. So I have an afterword at the end of the book, and it's called Conditions and Characteristics for the Revival of Democracy. And I draw from ancient texts, from Thucydides, for instance, to make a list of things, higher noble ideals that could lead to a more democratic form of government in your local communities, in your states, or even in your country. I think this is really interesting. Some lessons from the ancients about democracy and how should it look, or can it look? Can we have democracy? What that would look like? Thank you, guys. Keep raising the black.